As usual, welcome back. I'm sorry that this video comes after a long absence from me. I had a lot of things I was tying up at the end of the summer. I was working on a lot of CE, writing an article. I had a couple of vacations plans. Between that and work, I just haven't had the time to post anything. But today's video, we're actually going to continue taking a break from medicine, and we're going to talk about a requested topic, which is the pros and cons of becoming a veterinary technician or of working in the field in general. This video is going to be a little different from the other videos that you'll see on this topic, and even from articles that you'll read or things that you'll see on social media about working in the veterinary industry, because unfortunately, a lot of feelings about working in the veterinary industry right now are really negative because it's busy. There's a really high percentage of compassion fatigue and burnout. And I think it's really easy for us and for the news and all this social media attention to really focus on those negative feelings. But I don't feel that way, and I think that it can be a really amazing field to work in. So this video is going to be a little bit more upbeat than others that you'll see out there, but this is just my opinions on pros and cons of working in the veterinary industry. So on that note, I'm going to go over my cons list first so that we can end with the pros. The first thing on my cons list is the hours. Working in emergency medicine and at a 24/7 facility, I struggle every single day with leaving on time. And it's often not a big deal if you're leaving a little bit late sometimes, but when you're leaving late every day, it becomes really exhausting. I'm pretty used to eating dinner after 9 o'clock, after 12, 13, 14-hour shifts. And I even ended up buying some automatic feeders for my cats so that they didn't have to go without food for extended periods of time. If you're the kind of person who your lifestyle requires you to be home at 5:30, weekdays only, you expect every holiday off, this is 100% not the right field for you. Working in emergency and critical care medicine, holidays are an expectation and weekends are a requirement. Even if you don't work in an emergency clinic, walk-ins happen, emergencies still come in, you get stuck waiting for that one owner to pick up their pet after surgery. But the lifestyle of the job is that you will be working long hours and you will be working late. The second thing on my cons list is the physical demands of the job. For me, I struggled putting this entirely in the cons column because I actually really like that my job is very active, that I spend very little of my day on the computer. There's a big joke that, like, why do we work out? Because our job is pretty much a workout. We have to be able to lift heavy, sedated dogs, restrained cats. It's a very physically demanding job. Even outside of the physical demands, there's risk for zoonotic exposure to you and risk to your animals of bringing home something from work. You have to be careful when you're handling potentially infectious cases, but sometimes we don't know that they're potentially infectious until we've already been interacting with the patient. I get particularly paranoid about bringing home a disease to my cats. So if I've been handling a suspected infectious cat or a known infectious cat, I will, the second I walk in the door, take off my scrubs and shower before I even interact with my pets. The list of injuries I've sustained at work is not super short. I've been bitten pretty bad by several dogs. Luckily, it never required any stitches. And I've been bitten by many a cat. I've had cat bite complications, from abscesses to having to have my wounds lanced to requiring IV antibiotics. I have permanent scars, one on my face from being bit by a dog that was post-ictal. I've heard of people having their fingers bitten off, sustaining broken noses, other broken bones from trying to restrain aggressive dogs. And the list kind of goes on for the potential for workplace injuries. And on an even more recent note, with the pandemic, work was still open, we were still there. We didn't have the option to social distance because there is often the requirement to restrain a large animal or an aggressive animal, where there will be 2, 3 nurses and doctors all within a few inches of each other. Another thing on my cons list is going to be the emotional demand. The emotional toll that this job has on you can be one of the hardest things to learn to deal with. We see a lot of really sad stuff, especially working in the emergency industry. I have had to hold owners' hands while they said goodbye to their beloved pets, some pets which I've known for years and have come to consider part of my family. I have had to see a lot of horrific injuries. I've had to place euthanasia catheters on pets with missing legs, with full body burns, cats that have been drowned in washing machines. The list of horrific things that you see on a day-to-day basis just goes on. And it can be really, really hard to learn to deal with that. It takes years of learning how to build up emotional barriers between you and the job so that you don't burn out from the amount of sad things that you're seeing. When I first got into the field, I thought that euthanasias were going to be the hardest thing that I had to deal with, but I didn't really consider everything else. The sad reality is that we do a lot of financially based euthanasias, but also we have some owners that will not stop, and we have to sit there with their pets while they suffer and eventually pass away. As a patient's nurse, we are one-on-one with them during some of the hardest moments in their lives, and sometimes during the last moments of their lives. I've sat with many a pet that has passed away, knowing that the owners were rushing to the clinic to try to say their goodbyes and that they couldn't get there in time. Even outside of the really sad things that we see at work, we also deal with a lot of emotions from the owners. Unfortunately, anger is pretty high on that list because a lot of people that are grieving have some misplaced anger. They're angry at the situation. They're angry that there's a financial component to their pet's health care. They're angry that they can't afford it or that they have to make that decision. And even if they can afford it, they're angry that they have to pay. And those people can be really hard to deal with. And unfortunately, it's very common. We get yelled at a lot as technicians because we're the ones that are going over estimates typically. We get yelled at a lot by owners because they're mad at themselves or the situation or their financial burdens. And unfortunately, we just have to learn to not take that personally and to deal with it. I myself still fail at that and get upset when owners act a certain way either towards me or to their pet's situation, and it can be really hard to just learn to deal with that degree of emotion from other people. And the last thing on my cons list, and I'm sure there are more, but on my list is the starting wage. I worked for many years at minimum wage before I was slowly able to start getting raises to make a livable wage, because in most places, like especially in Salt Lake City, minimum wage is not livable. I'm gonna touch on wage again in the pros list actually, but definitely the starting wage in the industry before you get much experience is really not appropriate. All right, well now on to my pros list. So since we talked about starting wage on my cons list, I'm actually going to start my pros list with an improving wage. When I started in this industry years ago, I saw even a very experienced, very tenured nurses making less than what some nurses are getting started out as now. And that is saying something. That's saying how much change this industry has gone through in the past several years. I know if I look back at what my starting wage was, again, $7.25 minimum wage, a decade ago, and look at what I know that inexperienced nurses are getting hired at now, it's very different. And I think it's going to keep getting different. I think it's going to keep improving. Basically, I think the industry has seen that nurses are not being paid enough, and that if they want good nurses, which are a requirement for a successful hospital, that they need to pay us more. So not only is the wage improving beyond just livable, but I think that we do have the potential to make good wages. I will say I'm happy with what I'm making now, even though I'm not making as much as what a human nurse would make. I think that the industry is trending that way, and I think in the next several years, we're going to be struggling financially a lot less. The second thing on my pros list is job stability. Now and for the foreseen future, the industry is lacking in veterinary professionals. Currently, there are not enough veterinarians to support the pet owning community, and there are not enough veterinary technicians to support the veterinarians. And that is just going to worsen. If you've read any of the articles that try to trend the amount of owned pets versus the amount of veterinary professionals, really the trend is that there are not going to be enough of us to support the pet owning community in the future. So because of that, we are basically sitting in a really good position where we can always get a job, and we should always be able to get a job because there are not enough veterinary nurses, and I really don't think that there's ever going to be. I don't see this market getting oversaturated because of the requirements it takes to work in the field. So if you're a good nurse, a good employee, I do think you will not have to be worried about whether you find a place to work. Another thing on my pros list is education. Veterinary technician school is only 2 years, and oftentimes you can get started in the industry even before you go to school. In addition, you can take your education as far as you want to. There's the emergence of veterinary nursing bachelor's degrees and even veterinary nursing master's degrees. So if you're the type of person that's really motivated, loves school, wants to stay in school for a long time, you can. There's a lot of opportunities for growth, and I think that in the years to come, there will continue to be even more opportunities for veterinary technicians to grow themselves and really establish a niche for themselves within the field. And the last thing on my pros list, which is my favorite thing, is the job satisfaction. I get to go to work every day and see animals. No, I'm not playing with puppies and kittens, but I am doing something I have a huge passion for, and helping sick pets get better. Even working in an industry where the mortality rate can be 75% for truly critical patients, the 25% that I get to send home that wouldn't have lived without us is so rewarding. I can think back even now about all of the patients that I've had that were truly critical and helping them through those really hard days where we even didn't know if they were going to live or die. And now I get to think about the fact that they are having another holiday season with their family, and that gives me so much job satisfaction and so much pride in the work that I'm doing. I think about the technician I was several years ago and think about the technician that I am now, and I'm super proud of where I am in my career, and I'm also really excited for where I'm going to go in my career. I take an immense amount of pride in the work I do, in providing high quality care to every patient, and in helping the clinicians make decisions about their care. I just get to come home every day and be proud of the work that I've done, and that to me outweighs all of the cons on this list. So that is my short list of pros and cons of working in the veterinary industry. If you have one that I didn't list, go ahead and put it down in the comments. If you have any requests for future videos, also leave me a comment. Otherwise, if you made it this far, as always, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Wally.